Hi and welcome to this guitar tutorial on Fields of Gold. We're doing the Eva Cassidy version, although the song was originally recorded and written by Sting. You're going to need this tab that I've done to get through the video because I don't describe in detail the various different picking patterns. They are all tabbed out here. So there is a link in the description box below, and that takes you to it's actually on my meditation website because I couldn't think of anywhere else to put it. So for those of you who are interested in meditation, there could be some interesting things on that website as well, but you can download the tab from there in the description box below. Also in the description box there is a timeline for this video, so you can move to the relevant section that you want to work on. Much of the various sections of the song are done both in a reasonable tempo and then a slow tempo. The actual tempo of the song is pretty fast when you first start to do it, so even on the faster tempo that I use, it's slower than the original. So this is the plan of the song. There are 5 verses in all. You have the first 3 verses together, and I've divided them into each verse into part 1 and part 2. There are variations between the two in each of the verses. So after the first 3 verses you have a middle 8 section here where we have a change in the picking pattern for the song. We then have an instrumental break or solo, which is essentially just a repeat of verses 2 and 3, so don't go into that because I've covered verses 2 and 3 above. We then go into a second middle 8 section, which is identical to the first. So again, I don't repeat that because the first middle 8 section is done here both in fast and slow speed. Prior to verse 4 there's a little instrumental rundown similar to the introduction. Then we have verse 4, verse 5, and then we have the outro. So the actual notation for this song is not in standard tab. The various chords here, you don't have a lot of chords in this particular song, but they're all numbered here. I've got the capo on the 7th fret. I've seen this song done on the 6th fret as well, but I'm using the 7th. So hence all of these chord shapes here are shapes rather than actual the actual sounds of the chords themselves, because we've got the capo on the 7th fret, so I refer to them as B minor shape, G sus2 shape, D shape, etc. This notation here in red is the fret used in relation to the capo. So with the capo on the 7th fret, A2 would be fretting on 7 plus 2, which is the 9th fret. So these are all in relation to the capo being on the 7th fret. So when you see when you don't see a number here or you see a 0, it means that that particular string is open. And I've tabbed all of the song here, which has taken me many hours. So you will need that to go through the song. Put the solo break in there where it should be. And that's about it. This song is absolutely beautiful. It does take time to learn, so you won't do it overnight. It's also never going to be played the same way twice, so for those of you that get overwhelmed with the various slight variations that they are in the different verses, then you know you can just essentially play out the first verse and repeat that, and that'll be enough to get you through the verses. But I have tabbed out all the variations that are made in this particular version of the song. Okay, so that's enough for the introduction. There is loads of information in this tutorial to get you through the song and make it your own. As with any tutorial of this complexity, you know, it's never going to be complete. You know, other people have done it in different ways, so you know, there's plenty here for you to work on and master this song. Alright, we'll crack straight on now. This is the introduction at normal speed. 1 and 2 and... We'll do the intro at a slower speed. 1 and 2 and... This is a playthrough for the whole of verse 1, and then I'll split it up into 2 parts. 1 and 2 and... So we'll do the first part of verse 1, and this will be at a slower speed. Verse 1, part 2. For verse 2, the first part is exactly the same as verse 1. So 1, 2. There are some slight variations between the second part of verse 1 and verse 2. First of all, we'll just go through a slow playthrough of the second part of verse 2, and then we'll just talk about a couple of differences. 1 and 2 and... So there are 3 differences between part 2 of verse 1 and part 2 of verse 2. The first one is on the B minor shape at the beginning. On verse 1 it's slightly longer. We've got verse 2, it's truncated. We've got a shorter version here. And the second difference is on the D shape, which on the verse 1 we essentially have no hammer on, so it goes. Whereas on the second part of verse 2 we have. And the final variation is again on the D shape at the very end. And for verse 1 we have. Verse 2 we have. Okay, that completes the variations between verse 1 and 2. We will now move on to verse 3. We'll now move on to verse 3, so I will do a full playthrough of this verse. 1 and 2 and... Verse 3, the first part is exactly the same as the first 2 verses. The second part there are some minor variations again, so we'll go through this second part of verse 3 slowly and then I'll just point out some differences. Okay, so the main difference, in fact the only difference between this and part 2 of verse 2 is the ending on the D shape here. So it's in the notes, so it's... That's fully tabbed with the notes that go along with this video, so I'll leave you to get your fingers around that one. Okay, we'll now move on to the middle 8 section. This is played twice in between the solo of the song, so I'll only do one example of the middle 8 section, and that's next. 1 and 2 and... So this is a slow version of the middle 8 section. 1 and 2 and... So in between the second middle 8 section and verse 4, there's a short prelude. It's a short instrumental sort of rundown that you do just prior to verse 4. So we'll go through that now. Okay, we have 1 and 2 and... So it's just like the introduction, other than the difference in the picking pattern on the D shape at the very end. We do this in slow speed. 1 and 2 and... Okay, we'll move on to verse 4 now. 1 and 2 and... Verse 4 at a slower tempo. 1 and 2 and... This is the fifth and final verse. 1 and 2 and... This is the final bit of the song, and it is the outro. 1 and 2 and